The latest Jerry Jones comments has Cowboy fans absolutely terrified, and for good reason, as they should. We'll break it down and much more on this episode of Cowboys Digest. Welcome in, everybody, to Cowboys Digest. I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, and I'm sorry, everybody, for the layoff. Had some things to do, to tend to in my personal life, so I'm back. Going to be back with the daily uploads, so make sure to hit that subscribe button because a large percentage of you watching the channel are not subscribed, and as of now, I'm giving you my word, we're going to be seeing daily Dallas Cowboys content moving forward, so you won't want to miss it. But let's get straight into the video. Let's get straight into the comments that Jerry Jones made that has Cowboy fans absolutely terrified, and for good reason. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones on 105.3 The Fan said he's not ruling out a contract extension for head coach Mike McCarthy. I don't think that's crazy at all. This is a Super Bowl winning coach. Mike McCarthy has been there and done that. He has great ideas. We got a lot of football left. So first off, Jerry is not closing the book on this season. And I understand, you're coming off a big win against a division rival. A lot of things went your way in that one, but I'm going to err on the side of caution here and say that the Cowboys are not going to make the playoffs. Am I actively cheering for them to lose? Absolutely not. Don't get it twisted. I've mentioned this before. I'm going to say it again. We get to watch our favorite football team 17 times a year over the course of a calendar year. It happens once a week over an 18-week period. And if you're lucky enough, you get a couple of playoff games sprinkled in there. The Cowboys usually get one playoff game or two playoff games, then they're bounced in pretty short order. So I will never cheer for my team to lose in terms of gaining draft position or anything of that nature. I want to see the Cowboys win. I want to see them be competitive, and I want them to put their best foot forward because the fans deserve it. And the fans absolutely deserve it, and I think I can agree with Jerry Jones on that point, that drafting high is definitely important, but you have some pieces in place. You went through a lot of injuries. The number one thing for the Cowboys is obviously to draft well this offseason, but you need to spend money. You're going to have salary cap to work with. You need to spend that sucker, and you need to be able to address the notable holes on this roster. And multiple things that are true, in my opinion. According to RJ Ochoa, McCarthy has been the most successful Dallas Cowboys coach throughout the drought. He was set up extremely poorly for this season. He has done himself no favors this season. An overall reset is needed. This is likely Jerry just talking. And we know Jerry loves to get on the front press. He loves to be on the front pages of all of those newspapers and headlines. And that's what he lives for, man. He's a showman. He is a brand ambassador and one of the best in the National Football League. But when it comes to making football decisions, not always his strong suit. He has done some good stuff. So we have to credit him with some of the good football decisions that were made. But a lot of things that needed to be done were not done, and that falls squarely on the shoulders of Jerry Jones. So, yeah, I think a reset is needed, and I've used RJ Ochoa's tweets multiple times on this channel, so go check him out on X if you haven't already. Does daily Dallas Cowboys coverage. He's great. He's up to date on everything that you need to know Dallas Cowboys, so it's a great follow, and very honest, brutally honest, I would say, which some fans may not like, but I think I'm that same way. I think I can shed some light on some situations that I'm not necessarily happy about with the Dallas Cowboys, and hopefully some of you agree with me. Some of you don't, but that's fine. We can't all agree. We can't all get along. But I agree. An overall reset is needed. The offense has looked putrid this season, and I know that there's been some injuries, and maybe the personnel isn't where it needs to be. The personnel definitely isn't where it needs to be. Let me cut a little bit of slack to Mike McCarthy here, but the lack of creativity, the lack of fluidity in the offense falls on his shoulders because he is the play caller. He is the guy that is designing this offense and playing it the way that he sees fit. So if they're not able to put points on the board, and if they have a full complement of players, I think that's on Mike McCarthy. And it has just been happening this year, but the run game is non-existent. That's been a reoccurring issue over the past couple of seasons, and now they're just starting to lean on Rico Dowdle, which I think is a very smart decision, but it's a few weeks too late here. You're out of the playoff race. You haven't gotten enough out of this guy. He should have been your lead back from the get-go, but you were trying to force Zeke down our throats. It's not 2016 anymore, man. We got to get with the times here. And Rico Dowdle is your guy, and I'm glad that he's being utilized correctly here, and I don't think he's a big part of the issues that the Cowboys are having. I actually think he's pretty solid. He deserves a long, extended look from now until the end of the season, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's their starter to start the year next year. So, all things considered, I think the Cowboys should be doing a lot better than they are offensively, but they're not getting separation. They're not creating openings with their routes. There's a lot of things that they need to be doing differently, and I think you got to pin that on Mike McCarthy. Again, the personnel's not great. When you have Jalen Tolbert as your number 2 receiver, the Cowboys are set to get Brandon Cooks back, which should inject a little bit of life into this lineup. But you have Jalen Tolbert as your number 2 receiver, it's going to be a bit tough to get some of those big plays, and it's hard to not throw to CeeDee Lamb every single time he's on the field. He's your guy. You got to force feed him, because that's the situation that you put yourself in. That's the corner that you've backed yourself into here. But the lack of creativity, the lack of separation, I think that falls on Mike McCarthy, because we're not seeing him utilize the players the way that they're supposed to be utilized. And I'll use Kevontae Turpin as a prime example. This guy is one of the fastest players in the National Football League. You're telling me the best you got for him is a couple of jet sweeps every game, or maybe a jet sweep, maybe a slot reception every now and then? If he was on the Chiefs, he would be racking up a ton of yards with Patrick Mahomes. And Mike McCarthy, you managed to get a Super Bowl out of Aaron Rodgers while having Aaron Rodgers in the locker room. That seems like some incredible interpersonal management. Mike McCarthy's got some magic that we don't know about. That was Dominique Foxworth on First Take. I don't know if I agree with him. Aaron Rodgers has definitely changed over this past couple of years. I don't think he was always like that, especially not in his early days in Green Bay. Always been a bit of a douche, but I wouldn't say that he was like that, like how he is now at the start of his career. And Mike McCarthy, not trying to talk about contract talks, but welcomes the positive vibes, so I like that. And then in 7 seasons, 2 Super Bowls, 4 NFC Championship games, 69-57 regular season record, 8-4 in the playoffs, and he's the one on the hot seat while Jerry wants to keep Mike McCarthy. So Kyle Shanahan on the hot seat after a down year for the San Francisco 49ers, dealing with a lot of injuries, so granted, maybe they don't have the full complement of players, but they're out of a playoff spot right now, and they've been struggling mightily to win games and to look as good as they did last year, quite frankly. So Shanahan on the hot seat and Mike McCarthy isn't. I find that hard to believe. I feel like this is just Jerry talking out of his you-know-what and not really holding much weight to those comments, but it is a bit of a concern because you're basically just going to be regurgitating the same stuff over and over again if you bring in Mike McCarthy. The guys clearly haven't quit on him. They clearly respect him in the locker room, but sometimes he's not the right man for the job, and the Cowboys are trying to find answers here. They're trying to find that right piece that is the missing link to bring them where they want to be ultimately, which is a Super Bowl contender. And I think Mike McCarthy has had his chances. He's had great rosters over the past few years. He's been successful in the regular season, but not much to speak of in the playoffs. And he's the one calling the shots. He's the one running the offense. So I think the Cowboys need to move in a different direction. And I think that is the best course of action this offseason. I'm not pinning this all on Mike McCarthy. I don't think he's the only one at fault for the Cowboys this season. But again, like RJ Ochoa mentioned, I don't think he's done himself any favors either. So it might be time to move in a different direction. I don't know if Jerry feels that same way. And he's the one ultimately that's going to be tasked with this decision. So let me know in the comments down below. Do you want to see Mike McCarthy back next season? Do you think he will be back next season? Or do you think Jerry Jones is just trying to rile up the fan base and create a little bit more excitement for the game that is coming up tomorrow against the New York Giants at 4:30 Eastern Standard Time? Drop your predictions down below. Do the Cowboys make it 2 wins in a row tomorrow? Do they win their first home game of the season? We'll find out. Go Cowboys.